Dr. Jazz.
To jump in, man. I wanted to ask you one thing always for quite some time now. When is I'm a huge fan of, Vastness of Space and Dirty Show tunes and those records. And uh,
Hmm.
are you thinking of terms of band leading still and of making your own record again? I mean, I love those compositions and those tunes.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess, the Bad Plus is still my band too. Um, but in terms of like a project that's solely under my direction, yeah, definitely. I've got stuff in the works. It's going to be a little different than those records, but I'm planning on making a record soon. Something should be out this year.
Can you reveal already? I mean, what direction are you going? Or
Well, I mean, I'm really into electronic music, and
really? Oh, wow.
I
Okay.
have a band that's done a little bit of touring this last year with guitar and violin and electronics. I don't play bass at all
Oh, wow.
uh,
Okay. Okay.
in the new version of me, but yeah,
Impressive.
it's been a real passion project for years and years. I mean, I've just been sort of obsessed with trying to figure out like what I would want to do with synths and drum machines and stuff, and I sort of have it, I think, kind of figured out at this point. So
Interesting. Okay,
uh,
that's gonna be cool.
yeah,
So no drums basically, or
no, it's all drum machines,
drum
and
machines and stuff.
yeah,
Wow.
I control all the electronic stuff.
Okay, that's cool. That's different than okay, nice. That we got that covered. I wanted to ask you that. I mean, like I love those records. I was in Fresh Sound back then as well, and I remember I bought every Fresh Sound record that was out there, and those are still like one. The vastness of space, man. That's like ah alive,
Yeah, well, I'm
really.
always happy to hear that people like that record.
Yeah, it's such a good one. And I wanted to ask you one thing. You've been writing still, of course, for the Bad Plus, and one thing that I always when I listen to your compositions, and you also mentioned that, like in I think on Vastness of Space, like the liner notes, that the melody, how important it is for you, and uh, what's your process when writing music? I mean, how do you compose? And let's say for the Bad Plus, for the last record, I think you wrote like motivations too, and some other tunes. And what's your process when writing?
Hmm. I'm of the school of let the song write itself, basically. I really, you know, I have an idea. I try to just allow it to evolve in whatever way it wants to. I'm really like personally like I think it's good to have a philosophy, whatever gets you there, but like sort of just some kind of philosophical point of view that you can sort of count on.
Mhm.
And mine is really just go for the obvious. Like I that's how I approach everything really.
In what sense? I mean,
In the sense of if something is like I if something is speaking loudly to me or like saying, hey, here it is, here's the next move, here's the next phrase or the next harmony or the next the next idea, I really try to go with that. I don't
okay.
I don't try to shut that off and search for something else. Like I really to me it's yeah, just like those kind of I don't know, they're sort of like your subconscious that's telling you something and you should listen to it.
Yeah. Do you write now, like for the Bad Plus, then you have Ben and Chris in the band. Has your writing changed? I mean, did you write like the music that you wrote, like knowing those two guys are there, or like
Yeah, I mean, I always write with people in mind who are
Players.
going to be playing it. Um, and also just there's, on a just a practical level, like writing for piano, there are some things that, you would write specifically for piano that, like there's for example, like music in our the Bad Plus repertoire that doesn't
Hmm.
really translate over to guitar and saxophone. It's very piano specific. Um, and also the idea that there's a saxophone now that's sort of independently
Yeah.
delivering the melody that opens things up in a certain way as well.
Mm. I listened to there was like you had a tour now, I think in November, right, in Europe, and
Yeah.
yeah, and I listened to one. There was one live stream, and the band is killing with Chris and Ben, and it still sounds like Bad Plus, which is quite interesting. Obviously, you and Dave are still there, but what has I mean, bringing Ben is like a monster on the guitar. So like, how did
Mhm.
you approach this new Bad Plus when composing and when getting together, and uh, why Ben and Chris? I mean, it's maybe a stupid question. I mean, they're on the top, but still, how did you decide for this setting actually?
Yeah, when Oren moved on from the band, Dave and I, we obviously like had some things to think about. Um, one was potentially not continuing, but that that was a fleeting thought. We didn't really consider that for too long, but we did feel like we've kind of said what we had to say in terms of the piano bass drums structure of the band.
Yeah, yeah.
And kind of right off the bat, we just wanted saxophone and guitar. That would seem like a good option to us. And once you say saxophone and guitar, um, another thing that's important to us is just playing music with our friends, people that we
Mm,
have
yeah.
history with. And Ben and Chris are both people that we have history with. And it wasn't really much more thought out than that. Just like giving those guys a call, seeing if they want to do it, um, and taking it from there.
Mm. Were they
Um,
surprised in a way, Ben and
and
Chris?
yeah, in terms of just the conceptual, yeah, I think they probably were. Yeah, I don't, because I remember I called Ben. I hadn't called Ben for quite a while. I mean, we just kind of weren't in touch for a while, and then I just randomly called him out of the blue, and he picked up, and I was just like, "Hey, do you want to be in the Bad Plus?" And he was like, "Yeah, okay, wow." Um, and Chris too. Like Chris was, he would come to shows all the time. He was like a real fan of the band, and I think he really never expected us to ask him to join. So, but that's what you want. Like you want a situation where people are like enthusiastic about being involved, and that
Yeah.
makes all the difference. It's like because it's a lot of work and it's a lot of time together, and the group dynamic is really important,
Mm.
as well as the music. So it's really been a really a wonderful transition from my perspective.
Yeah. It's like for
Um,
you and Dave probably
and
really
musically
nice.
also,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and just and also just yeah, a new way to frame our the Bad Plus aesthetic, like the approach of the band and the approach of our writing. And
Yeah.
now we just recorded a new record that'll be out this year at some point, and
Oh wow,
Chris
beautiful.
has a tune on it, and also Ben too. So um,
Is it like a
yeah,
tricky band tune, like 12 pages or no, right?
no, it's not. It's
Okay, I'm just
but
kidding.
it definitely brings you like the Ben you want to hear. It's like it's really it's amazing what he
Yeah.
as you know. I mean, Ben is such a
Yeah, yeah.
special guitarist, and yeah,
No,
he really, and he
it's
covers so much
awesome.
ground too. Like he can do so many things. Um, And
Yeah.
he's really, I don't know. I mean, maybe this is just commonly known, but I have to say, like, he's so in there in the music, like the way he's involved. He's always very aware of what's going on and making really conscious, beautiful decisions, but not like, it's just sort of off the cuff. He's like very like, he's incredible at like orchestrating and it's just it's great to play with those guys.
Yeah, I know. What I've heard sounds amazing. I mean, it's such a killing band now. It's beautiful. And how do you guys? You mentioned the touring and the road. Like, how do you stay fresh on a long tour like that you do? I mean, you've been doing Bad Plus touring for what, almost 30 years, I guess. And how do you keep it fresh all the time on every tour? You as a player, I mean, and as a group.
Well, I think, one thing, we have a pretty big book of music at this point. We tend to, we don't have like a set.
Oh, okay.
When you do a tour, you sort of settle on like, okay, here's the set we're going to do. But like, if we don't feel like doing something, we'll switch it up, and we're always changing things at the last minute. And I think also, we like the music, honestly. I think the music is like, there's always something interesting to find in it. And and just having, again, like really good musicians with good attitudes, and like it's, of course the road is hard. Everybody knows that. It's but at the same time, I'm kind of into like playing music you really know what. In fact, I'm like, that's kind of one of the best things about the Bad Plus. It's like, we really know the music.
Yeah.
And there's a special, it's like, I don't know, like a runner's high or something like that. When you get to the point where the music is so internalized that there's another level of freedom there. Even if you're tired and exhausted, it's just like, there's just this space where you don't have to, the energy that you would commit to just playing the music in a lot of circumstances where you don't get to really invest in that. You can dedicate it all to that moment,
Yeah. I mean, it's, like you said, it's the highest level. I mean, especially your connection with Dave, it's like, as a rhythm section, I wanted to ask you, like, how did your playing relationship develop through the years, through your years and eyes? From the day you started to play first together, and now, I mean, like, now it's like telepathic almost when I
with
hear
Dave.
With Dave Kink,
Yeah, well, we grew up together, so we've known each other since we're 15 years old. So this is like 1985, right? And yeah, I guess, when, like, he was really the first great drummer that I ever played with. I mean, he was really, as you can imagine, quite talented back then as well. That hasn't changed. It's just that kind of relationship that it's beyond professional or friendship. It's just like a, kind of a cosmic relationship that we have. And nothing, it's one of those things, I guess, like, you could say that about a lot of people. It doesn't have to be somebody you've known that long, but it's just, he's one of the great drummers, period.
Yeah.
And, he knows what he's doing. He knows what to do. And we trust each other. Absolutely. And that's pretty much it. Like, that's a constant throughout all these years.
Yeah. Did you guys ever talk about how to develop it together? I mean, like, when you were teenagers, did you work on stuff like how to do something, or?
No.
No, right? Yeah.
Very little discussion has ever happened about that stuff.
Interesting.
know.
Yeah. No, it's beautiful that this has been going on for 35 years or longer, even like you playing together. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Special.
it's not too many relationships in your life that are that long
Yeah,
standing,
exactly. But you mentioned when you were a teenager, what got you excited for jazz and improvisation? Was there a specific record or moment that you said like, shit, I want to do that, or like, how did you get into this?
You know, it was just a process of, going from rock radio, which was kind of my first exposure to music, as a kid. I didn't come from a musical
Mm.
family. But also Dave and I, and also Craig Taborn, were from a suburb of Minneapolis called Golden Valley. And so having two other people like that who were also interested. In fact, Craig probably turned me on to some of the first jazz records that I heard. He had a really significant record collection at that time, and he would like give me records, or we would also just go to the library and check out records, like, oh, I've heard of this John Coltrane. What does that music sound like? And so we would just get it from the library, really. And it was a kind of progression through like fusion was the kind of the first step, and then like you get into Weather Report and like Bill Bruford and Alan Holdsworth and that kind of stuff, and then
Sure.
find your way to Keith Jarrett and Ornette Coleman and Charles Mingus, like that, just out of curiosity, really.
What about bass
it
players?
takes you all kinds of places.
You mentioned Weather Report. I mean, like, who are your heroes in brackets, or like who?
Well, for sure, Charlie Hayden and Jimmy Garrison. Like those are my two absolute heroes. And yeah, I think hearing Charlie Hayden for the first time, that really clicked something, and I was like, okay, that makes sense to me. Like that instrument, the acoustic bass in this setting, that really turned that switch on for me.
Yeah, especially with Ornette. You mentioned Ornette. I mean, that's like, oh man.
Yeah, well, and Keith Jarrett, like
yeah, and Keith, yeah, sure, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's the kind of ground zero for a certain kind of playing that I think a lot of us of sort of this generation, but certainly me and Dave and Craig and Ethan and that stuff really was in our ears.
Yeah, definitely. When did you decide to move to New York, and what was the main trigger to do that?
I moved to New York in I think 94, 95. I can't remember. I went to school in Philadelphia, and sort of with the goal of being close to New York, and I had studied classical music, and
oh really? I didn't know.
But I didn't want to do that. And then just like that, going to New York was like the obvious step, because getting out of school, it was clear to me that I wanted to play jazz, and so I was just trying to figure out how to do that, and New York was the obvious place to go. Where are you, by the way?
Oh, I'm in Slovenia, in Europe, like.
Oh, okay.
Maribor, which is like half an hour south of Graz or 2 hours south of Vienna, kind of.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, in between Vienna and Zagreb and Ljubljana and Budapest, kind of like there somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But
too close to the camera. I think I'm too close to the camera.
Oh, that's cool. But who were the first people you connected with? I mean, obviously on those first records, Mark Turner and Jeff Ballard and Ethan and Jorge. And did you immediately also start leading bands? Because like, all those records that you did, like that I mentioned before, are like 79, 97, 98, I think. And How did that happen actually, and that connection with Jordi also with Fresh Sound?
Yeah, no, I had never really written any music up until that point. I
Oh,
mean,
wow. Okay.
I dabbled in a couple of things, but yeah, I mean, the first couple of years I was just kind of in New York trying to find my way like anybody else and trying to, meet people, like-minded people. And yeah, fortunately, I kind of fell in with that crowd of those people you mentioned. And that was also the time, where the small scene was really active, and Kurt's band was in residence there, and that was a really, yeah, it was kind of like a meeting point for a lot of people to go and check that out. And that music was on such a high level. I had so many, everyone had so many great nights hearing that stuff. And then Mark's band, and, Guillermo's band, Jason Liner, all that stuff that was happening back then. But yeah, after a couple years of just doing the thing of getting together with people, playing sessions in people's apartments, and hearing this music, like that 90s New York jazz, I just kind of thought, yeah, I think I could write music like that. And I basically just kind of sat down and did it, and then brought some music to a jam session with, I think Jorge was playing, and Ethan, and I don't know, something like that. And we played it. And at the time, Jorge had a certain amount of credibility with Fresh Sound because he had brought Brad in there.
Right,
and they were taking him seriously, and they were asking him if he had any recommendations for people to make records, and he recommended me, and yeah, I ended up doing 3 records for them, plus the first Bad Plus record.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I love those records. Like I said, it's such beautiful music, and funny that you said you didn't write before, because those tunes are beautiful. That Dirty Show tune and Kafka, and I don't know what else. I listened to it today just to get in the mood a little for our talk, and it still sounds modern in a sense. It's not like you put it on and it's still like, damn, it's good. Nice record, beautiful stuff.
I think they stand the test of time. It's funny listening like to the first 2 records, Dirty Show tunes and Abolish Bad Architecture.
Yeah.
It's like, it feels like a different lifetime, like I would not write music like that today.
Interesting.
But yeah, it was kind of like getting it out of my system, I guess, in a way.
Yeah, no, but they're beautiful. I mean, all the things you've done on Fresh Sound. I mean, also the Bill McHenry records. How did you hook up with Bill? And I wanted to ask you about one record that I really love, because I transcribed Munder solos on that one with Paul Motian, and asking you, how was it like for you as a bass player playing with Paul? And I mean, he's for me one of the best composers and drummers, obviously, ever.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was, I hold Paul in the highest esteem. I think he's easily one of the most important musicians of the 20th century. And it's funny, I'd never played with him before doing those sessions, or doing that first session with Bill, because Paul is kind of famous for not rehearsing, and just, it's like, yeah, okay, I'll make the session. And I distinctly remember, starting to play the first notes, and it was very clear to me that, Paul's not going to help you out. He's not there to take care of you at all. So you have to just like, he's going to be strong, he's going to create energy, and everybody else has to do the same thing. And I feel lucky to have played with him a bit, and that's like maybe one of the most important musical experiences of my life, just playing with Paul Motian.
Yeah. Did you do
Yeah.
gigs with that quartet also, or tour
We
or
did.
tours?
We played a bit. Yeah, we did a few. I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks at the Vanguard.
Oh,
And
really? Oh, wow. Okay.
yeah,
Oh man, I have to find some bootlegs of that band. Such a killing group, really. That's
it was fun. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Bill was one of the first people I met when I moved to New York, actually.
Mm,
Um, and yeah, we just kind of were kindred spirits.
yeah. Yeah, he's such an amazing player, man. I mean, like one of the underrated saxophone players out there, really, and a great composer. Beautiful stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
yeah,
he's a unique voice.
yeah. I wanted to ask you also about, the Bad Plus's first record was in Fresh Sound, and how did you guys, you and Dave, decide to do that band in the beginning? I mean, what was the first rehearsal like, and uh, did you have that specific idea? You kind of basically changed with that band, at least in my view, the perception of a piano trio, like piano, bass, and drums. So many
Mhm.
bands followed you, like in Europe and everywhere, doing what you started to do. Like, what was the initial concept and idea?
Um, well, it really came from, Ethan and I were playing together a lot. I had met him. My first year of college was in Wisconsin,
Hmm.
and about an hour and a half from Minneapolis, where I grew up. And Ethan is from a small town there, which was very close to where I went to school that year. And Jeff Keezer's father taught percussion at that school,
Oh,
and he was aware of Ethan. He put us together because Ethan had to make a demo tape for some jazz camp he wanted to go to, and we hit it off right away. And so that relationship translated into New York. So he and I had been doing stuff, obviously on my first two records. I played on his records, etc. Dave, in the meantime, had been doing like really great stuff in Minneapolis. Yeah, this band still does, called Happy Apple,
yeah,
which is a very
it's
really
killing.
cool
I love it,
band,
man. Yeah.
and like a real band. Like that was kind of like one of the like progenitors of the Bad Plus, and just having this band concept. And I think I think Ethan had done some pickup gig out in Wisconsin, and he had called Dave to do it, and he came back and he was like, yeah, Dave's a really interesting drummer. So anyway, the three of us were doing stuff individually, and we thought, well, let's just see what would happen if we play together. There's a story in Bad Plus lore that we did, the three of us get together in like 1990 in my parents' living room, and nothing really came of it because we were all like pretty immature and not ready to really play together at that time. But yeah, fast forward to, this was like, I don't know, I guess 2000 or something like that, and we just did a couple of gigs, and
Mhm.
we just felt like there was something there, something that, and also I should say that, like, there was something generally in the air at the time, and probably still is, where it's like, wouldn't it be great if we could just have a band, if we
Yeah,
could just commit, and everybody commits, and we have a sound, and we just do it. We make whatever sacrifices you have to make this happen. And for the three of us, we collectively said, this is an opportunity to do that, because we just felt like there was something conceptually, there was something, we had something unique between the three of us. We share some common aesthetic, just a general, there was a meeting in the middle of some really important aesthetics that we all held.
yeah.
And that's really, that was really the beginning. And then starting to do, one of the early things we did was like a version of Smells Like Teen Spirit, and
Yeah, exactly.
that kind of coalesced something, like doing those covers that we became kind of known for. it was this great in one way, it was a great outreach opportunity, like, because when you're out there playing a song like Smells Like Teen Spirit in a jazz context where it's surprising to people, especially at that point, we weren't the first people to do it, but like it was still like a pretty fresh idea. And it really opened the door for us to kind of find a sound for ourselves, because you can really go all kinds of places with that and people are still with you,
Yeah. How did you decide to do that, actually? To do Nirvana and those covers?
It was just kind of a whim. Well, yeah, it was just kind of like, well, here's a really popular song, and Ethan didn't really even know it. He was kind of like
really? Oh, wow. Okay.
Blissfully unaware of the rock music scene. But yeah, it was just like, part of it was, well, another precursor to the Bad Plus is Dave and I did a recording in like 1993. He was living out in LA and I flew out there, and we did this recording that someday we'll, I don't know, digitize it and put it out somewhere. But we did like Jimi Hendrix, Spanish Castle Magic. We did The Ocean by Led Zeppelin.
Really?
We did,
oh man, okay.
Yeah, like, including a couple like sort of original tunes. Like the only other, like, I wrote like my very, very first tunes that were the only 3 tunes I wrote until Dirty Show Tunes. And so we had this idea, like Dave and I used to sit around fantasizing, talking when we were high school kids. We would just be in my parents' family room talking about music and say, wouldn't it be great, if you went to a jazz show and the band came out and they were like playing The Police, it was just an idea whose time had come, and we were kind of like, it's something we would have wanted to see. And then when we got the opportunity, it just was like, well, let's just do this thing that we would like to see.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and it so that was a very useful like way to engage the audience and allow us to do the things we were interested in, which was like the avant-garde, but also embrace this pop sensibility as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then, bring our own writing and into the mix. And so that was like the beginning of the Bad Plus.
Mm-hmm. How did that story with Columbia begin, and what did it mean for you? Like, obviously it's like a huge step from Fresh Sound to Columbia, and I know you became like, everyone, at least here in Slovenia, was like the Bad Plus, man. Like, at least in the jazz circles, we were recording copies of CDs and stuff, and and
yeah. I mean, that's, without that, I mean, that kind of made our career unquestionably. Like, that was the last gasp of the record industry as it used to be. Like, we signed with Columbia. Yves Beauvais, who was the A&R person for Columbia at that time, he had come to see us. We had one night at the Village Vanguard for I think it was the JVC festival. They had a week of one band every night, and we played, and yeah, we killed it. It was like a really good night, And Yves was like, yeah, okay, I want to sign you guys to Columbia, which was, blew our minds. And but I guess, in a way, it was just one of those things where an opportunity coincided with, we were ready for it. Like, we had been playing enough, we knew what we were doing, we had written music that we kind of had a sense of what we were about, and then all of a sudden to have like that muscle of a real record label behind you, it just opened so many doors, and it was really quite a experience. I have to say, it was really it was amazing. We made the records in Peter Gabriel's studio in England, the first 3 records, and it just kind of took off.
Yeah, bizarre. You basically did dirty show tunes and then your music, and then 4 years later you're in Peter Gabriel's studio or something like that. That's bizarre, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's crazy.
It was a crazy experience, and I'm glad we had it. You know, it was it was fun. It was exciting.
Yeah, beautiful. It's nice to hear you guys still doing it and still keeping it fresh, like said with Ben and Chris. That's beautiful. So, and otherwise, Reid, I just wanted to ask you not to take too much of your time. Like, how did the story with Broken Shadows happen with Tim Byrne? And you know, I've played with him and toured with him a bit, and I'm such a huge fan of his music, and I think he's one of the most underrated players and composers out there. Like, were you aware, like, already when you came to New York, of that part of the New York scene, like what Tim did and those guys and Tom Rainey and this connection with Tim? How did it start, actually?
Oh yeah, totally. Oh yeah, I was aware of Tim's music before I came to New York, and actually I played with Tom Rainey on the first, I think it was the first or second tour of Europe I ever did. You know, when I
really? Who was in the band?
Tom was on drums.
Wow.
It was this guy, Andy Laster. He's
yeah, sure, Andy.
It was his band.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's a killing band. Yeah, those CDs.
Yeah. So yeah, I knew Tim, but I didn't develop a relationship with Tim until you know, the Bad Plus did a project, an Ornette Coleman project, where we played the whole record of science fiction, and we got Tim and Ron Miles, trumpet player, and Sam Newsom to be the horn section, and we would play down the whole album. So that's kind of where it started. And then how did we start doing that band? I kind of don't remember how it started, to be honest, but that was sort of generated from that, and just wanting to play that music, like just wanting to have a band where we would play Ornette's music and Julius Hemphill, and you know, we did a Charlie tune and a Dewey tune, and for Chris, for, you know, Tim and Chris to kind of
Blood Count Days,
reunite,
have
a reason to come back together, and it was great. It was really fun, and you know, fun to play the role of, like, I got to really wear my Charlie Hayden hat, and I love doing that.
Is that band still kind of, do you still do that group, or not really?
No, it's a little, you know, it just got complex. The way the world works, you know, with me and Dave in the Bad Plus, if we go out and do something, so it just got too weird with bookings, and you know, the Bad Plus just has to take priority.
Yeah, of course.
So, but I'm really proud of the record we did. I think, you know, we went. It was like we had 2 days in the studio, and I think within about 4 hours we had recorded the whole record, and we were just like, okay, well, let's just mix it now, you know. So we just like completely knocked it out, and
it's beautiful. I love the tune.
It's fun to listen back to that.
Yeah, Una Moi Buita and all this doggone AD, and it's such a nice song selection you made. Also, you know, quite some amazing compositions there. I mean, beautiful stuff.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Otherwise, I wanted to ask you, like, what's on the schedule for you for next year? I mean, for this year, for 2024, like in the upcoming months. You mentioned the new record coming out, possibly later this year, and but otherwise, are you still again coming to Europe, or gigs and tours and other projects maybe?
Yeah. Plenty of touring and stuff. We're hoping the record is out by, I think, June 1st is the date people are talking about. Bad Plus will be on tour in Europe, I think, even maybe in March or something.
Oh, fantastic.
Things are still being worked out, but we're definitely going to be touring in Europe and Japan and stuff, China,
Fantastic.
US, of course, always. So basically that, I mean, I keep it pretty simple personally. I don't do anything else, except I'm, really working on my own thing, as I mentioned. So that's really my other goal for this year, is to finally kind of properly set that in motion and,
Fantastic. Beautiful.
see where
Cool.
that takes me.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one as well. So, and to the new one, but the Bad Plus, beautiful. So cool.
Thank you.
Reid, I will not take more of your time, and thanks for sharing some of these thoughts. And it was beautiful to hear you talk. And hope to catch you in Europe this year if you're close to where I live. So
Right on.
yeah, cool.
Yeah, please come and say hi.
Yeah, I will grab a beer together or something. So.
All right.